Hi everyone, if you're an existing subscriber, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new to my channel, hello and welcome, and why not hit subscribe now? So for those who don't know, I'm Alicia and I've been interviewing inspirational people and businesses to find out how and why they inspire others. This week, I interviewed David Evans, who's also known as the Grey Fox blog, to find out how and why he inspires others and how he has become such a fashion icon for the older generation. Here's how it went. Hello and welcome to the channel. To begin with, if you could just introduce yourself, who are you and what do you do?
Sure. Hello. My name's David Evans, and one of the things I do is run a blog called Grey Fox, which I started nearly 9 years ago now, and it really describes my search for style, in particular, sort of from the perspective of an older man, I suppose, although a large part of my audience is a lot younger than I am. And I just write about men's style, men's wear, a little bit about cars, watches, all the things guys like, really. And while it's not a job as such, it's a sort of a hobby which I enjoy doing, which takes quite a lot of my time. So that's me.
Fantastic. So, why did you want to start the blog? What was your reasoning behind it?
Yes, I think I started the blog because I felt I had a book in me and I wanted to practice my writing skills, and I thought a blog was a good way of doing this. And actually, when I first started the blog, I didn't have a clue what the subject of the blog was going to be. I didn't know what I was going to write about. And it could have been anything that interested me. It could have been cycling, it could have been anything really. And somebody said, well, why not write about something that sort of concerns you personally? And I thought of all the things that concern me personally. And one of the things I thought of was, you get to a certain age and you're not sure where to buy your clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Can I wear jeans? Can I wear t-shirts? And I didn't really know the answers to those questions because I don't have a background in menswear or fashion or style or anything like that. But I thought it might just be interesting just for a few weeks to write about those things until I'd thought about something better, something more interesting to write about. And here I am nearly 9 years later, still writing about the same things. So, essentially that is how the blog started, and it sort of developed. The contents have developed from what I started off as a search for style. And while that's still a central theme, it's sort of grown a little bit from that.
Okay, so I just want to quickly zoom in on the fact you mentioned you wanted to write a book. What was your reasoning behind wanting to write the book?
I've always enjoyed writing. For a large part of my career, I was a lawyer, and I suppose words are the tools of trade of a lawyer. And then lastly, I became a teacher, and again, very much the same thing. Words are the tools of trade for a teacher. And I can remember at school, my favourite subject was English, and I particularly liked the writing. So it just goes back to a natural inclination to write, I suppose. And I really didn't have a clue whether I was going to be writing fiction or not non-fiction. But what's actually happened in practice is that just being able to write the blog has sort of filled that desire that I had to write. And I was approached by a literary agent who asked me if I wanted to write a book on men's style, and in the end it didn't get anywhere because their idea of a book and mine didn't quite coincide. But one day that might happen. I might actually write a book on men's style and use the blog material as a source of material for the book. I don't know.
Okay, it's actually really interesting to hear you say you didn't really know whether it was non-fiction or fiction, because normally a lot of the time writers kind of have an idea and then they write the book. So it's very interesting to kind of get your side on that. Do you think having the skills from being a lawyer and then the teacher has helped with your blog?
Oh, very much so. Yes, I think with the writing in particular, and I think, you know, just going back to your question, I think the idea of the blog was that I could just throw material, you know, at the computer, as it were, and just see what I enjoyed writing about and see what sort of came out of it. But yes, certainly, as a lawyer, you have to be quite sort of careful with your writing. And as a teacher as well, I just think you need to be able to sort of express yourself in writing and verbally in a way that gets a message across. So all those are skills that you need for writing as well. So it all meshes, it all links in.
Most definitely. In one of your interviews, what you had, you said that prior to starting the blog, you had no idea on fashion. Where did you get your inspiration from? Because now you are very stylish, and like you say, you're a huge inspiration for a lot of people.
Well, thank you. Yes, yes, I suppose. I mean, I didn't know much about menswear or about style, but I suppose I sort of had a passing interest because as a lawyer, I used to try and dress reasonably well. But I didn't spend a lot of time in it. I didn't know a lot about brands and that sort of thing. So I suppose I was sort of taking a topic and developing my knowledge on it as I went along. Um, and it, I think a large part of it is just having a sort of a fairly natural, it might sound a bit strange this, but having a fairly natural sort of artistic sense. You know, I seem to have a natural understanding of color and proportion, and those are all very relevant to style in the sense that you know, when you're choosing clothes, choosing a suit or whatever, the way you wear it, maybe the way that the suit itself is styled in terms of proportion and color and materials and so on, are all basic sort of artistic instincts, and I think they're quite important to putting together a look as a, you know, menswear stylist. So again, you know, it's all these skills all linked together, and a lot of it was just looking around, seeing things that I liked. A lot of it was reading about, you know, some of the history of men's style and so on. But a lot of it also was just my sort of natural instincts, if you like, and it was just putting all those things together and hoping it worked.
It clearly did.
Oh, thank you.
You just mentioned there about reading. Now, I actually saw something the other day that said a lot of people who are successful read. Do you believe in that? Do you believe that reading's better than watching something? What's your view?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, in particular, the question, do I believe that reading something is better than watching? I think if you are interested in words and the way that words can sort of express ideas and inspiration, then nothing beats reading, really. There's no doubt that watching a film or something is inspiring, but I don't think it quite sort of influences you in the same way that reading does, because reading depends very heavily on imagination. And so if I read a fiction book, you know, I get a distinct picture in my head of what the main characters look like. As if I watch that, you know, if I read that in a James Bond book, I have a clear idea of what my idea of James Bond looks like, or, you know, when jumping off a cliff, what that looks like. But if I see it on a film, then all that is done for me. So the imagination is completely cut out of it. So I think that sort of lack of imagination you get in watching something rather than reading about it is quite an important element, really. And so I'd have to say, sort of from that point of view, I probably prefer the reading and think that's a more creative way of looking at something like that.
In a way, your mind can just go to sleep and not really take it in.
I think that's right. I suppose it's a bit like, you know, cooking some marvelous meal yourself and putting together all the ingredients yourself. And you can really enjoy it because it's something you have created. You've got all the ingredients together. Whereas if you just sort of buy a ready meal, you're not going to enjoy it quite as much because you haven't had that creative input. So, you know, that might be a sort of parallel that is valid or not, I don't know, but it's one that occurred to me anyway.
Yeah, logical. What would you say is like the main element when putting an outfit together? What would you say is the main element to that outfit? Is it your accessories? Is it the outfit itself?
That again is a very interesting question. I think the main element isn't necessarily a material one. I think the main element is that the look has to reflect your personality, and that you have to sort of feel comfortable wearing those things, because we can all look at Instagram or whatever and see outfits which look absolutely fantastic. But when it really comes to it, if we try to wear those outfits ourselves, we probably feel a little bit self-conscious, because we'd be aping somebody else's style and therefore their personality. It's far better to think about the sort of things that you would like to wear yourself. And maybe if you see an outfit, try and imagine yourself wearing it. And if actually you, while you like the outfit, you couldn't really imagine yourself wearing it, then that's an indication it's not really for you. So I think it's very important that things do fit you and your personality, you know, as well as your body shape and everything as well. But I think in a way that's very much secondary to outfits needing to fit you and how confident you feel, what your personal tastes are in relation to sort of, you know, materials and colours and shapes. So basically, you are the source of what, you know, decisions you make about style. It's very important that you develop that. Otherwise, you just tend to be copying other people, really. And when you copy other people and it doesn't reflect your own style, I think that shows in a funny sort of way. You know what I mean? People look slightly uncomfortable. Sometimes you see them on Instagram looking slightly uncomfortable. And I think that's because they don't really like what they're wearing. They don't really feel it's part of them. They don't really feel it suits them.
Okay. And do you think that's what's been the success to your blog, because you've kind of found your own style and you feel comfortable in it, whereas you see a lot of Instagrammers struggling to get where they are and all they're doing is sort of copying what someone else is doing?
Well, it's interesting that, because I'm not sure that, you know, while I've got a reasonable number of followers and so on, I'm not sure I'm the most successful sort of style blogger, because you see many have got even fewer followers than I have, who get many more likes to their images. So I'm not sure that your sort of presupposition that I'm a very successful blogger is the right one. But but interestingly, if I accept that, if I half accept that, and try not to be too modest about it, but yeah, I've sort of had that conversation in a way recently on some of the on some of my posts on Instagram, and I do seem to get some feedback that people think that what I'm wearing is very authentic and genuine, and that may go back to what I've just been talking about. You know, that I try to wear stuff that I feel I really want to wear and that suits my personality. And I think that authenticity is very important. And I think if that comes across, then hopefully people will not only be inspired by it to sort of find things that they really want to wear and like to wear and fit their personalities, but you know, also to help them do that, rather than just saying try this, try that, wear this, wear that. To me, that's a more important sort of way forward, really, as an influencer, if you like, to use that horrible term. You know, I'm influencing people to find their own style rather than just telling them to wear that particular suit because, you know, I've been sent a free sample by the brand and or I'm being paid to tell them to wear it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. You're very much like the older generation, but as you said at the beginning of this interview, you do have a lot of youngsters following you. As someone is getting older, what do you think should or shouldn't be in their style? Trainers, joggers, do you think that should be included, or?
I don't think there's anything that shouldn't be in their style. You know, I genuinely believe that. I've seen, you know, men older than me wearing trainers and tight jeans and the sort of things. I mean, I do wear trainers occasionally, but I wouldn't wear really tight jeans and, you know, some of the styles that teenagers wear. But you do see men sometimes wearing those outfits who are, you know, have grey hair and in their 50s and 60s, and often it works. So I think the short answer is that it very much depends on the wearer, you know, how confident they are and how well they can carry off those clothes. So I've tried very hard for nearly 9 years not to make rules like that and not to say older men shouldn't wear this and shouldn't wear that. And I think that's partly a result of my, starting off with those questions. Can I wear t-shirts? Can I wear jeans? And I found that, well, yes, if I want to, I can. And I think, it should be open to us to wear that. I've been wearing a lot of denim since lockdown, and there's a following. But there's a part of my following who, in a very humorous and kindly natured way, say, "Oh, not more denim, David." But I like wearing denim, and I don't think it looks. Well, I'm wearing a denim shirt at the moment, and I don't think. I think there's always that worry at the back of your head sometimes. I think in that sort of situation that you're sort of mutton dressed up lamb, that you're wearing stuff to make yourself look younger. But I certainly don't wear those things for that reason. And I think as long as you don't try and do that, then there's no reason why it can't work, provided you carry it off with confidence. And linked to that, if I can just ramble on a little bit further, I often go onto the high street and I see, men who are obviously dads with their sons, and the dads are wearing exactly the same as the sons. And I think usually that doesn't work, because I feel the dads are just wearing what their sons are wearing in order to sort of look young and hip, and that I don't think quite works. Whereas if what they were wearing was what they really wanted to wear, and it could be what their sons wear, but if they really wanted to wear it and wore it with confidence and style, then it would be a entirely different matter. So I suppose what I'm saying in a very long, convoluted fashion is that there's nothing that's, any generation, any sort of demographic shouldn't really wear. I wouldn't make any rules of that sort, hopefully.
So following on from what you just said about like the men and their sons, do you think that you should embrace getting older as opposed to try and stay young forever?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I always think it's very sad when people can't accept that they're getting older, and I see it with men and with women. But it's really refreshing to see that there's a really strong sort of wave on Instagram, particularly among women who are older and are accepting their grey hair. They're allowing their hair to go grey, just as most men do. They're accepting their age. They're finding styles which are, which they enjoy wearing. And it seems to be a movement which has taken off in the last couple of years, and actually which the press hardly seems to have picked up on at all. Probably because older people aren't generally seen as very cool. And to an extent it's happening with men as well. I suppose, a bit like me, there are lots of older grey-haired male influencers on Instagram who are out there showing all sorts of styles, from the tight jeans we were talking about through to the nice Savile Row tailoring. And they're all people who are quite clearly very comfortable with their age, trying to be something you're not. Again, it's this authenticity issue, isn't it? I don't think you can really look stylish because it just looks as if you're trying too hard to be something you're not.
So how do you embrace getting older? How do you learn to accept that? Because for some people that wouldn't just come overnight or come naturally. It would take a bit of a process.
With some people it obviously does. I mean, to me it did come naturally, because as you age you just don't change your attitude towards life. A lot of privileges come with age. There's a lot of evidence that older people are happier. The sort of the imminence of death isn't really hanging over me. I'm not thinking, oh my God, in 30 years I'm going to be dead. It is. There are genuine privileges with age, and those are confidence and happiness and for most, I admit this doesn't happen for everybody, but for a lot of people it does happen, and I think that is a trend you're very much seeing among people on Instagram. So sorry, I can't remember what your question was now. I've rambled so much, but yeah, no, I think that it's not really a question of having to work at it, but there probably is a minority who really don't find it easy to accept their age, and I hope that they will be influenced by, for example, all these women on Instagram who are just embracing their age and having a really wonderful time with it and finding styles for themselves. If they can influence others who are less happy with aging, then that would be a fantastic thing.
What would you say to that minority who are struggling to accept that they are getting older?
I would say that being unhappy about what you're not is just going to lead to further unhappiness. Much better embrace it, and that way happiness comes. I mean, I really think it's as simple and straightforward as that.
Okay, and I think that's something that even if you're not necessarily getting older, that you
Yeah.
can learn from that as well, even if you're just struggling to embrace.
Well, I think you're right, and what is very sad is that we're seeing exactly the same a lot more with younger people. Again, with young women in particular, we're seeing cosmetic surgery and girls as young as in their teens, and okay, that is probably from the sort of the worst side of social media, but it does mean that that desire to be something you're not isn't just something that is confined to older people. It's increasingly with very young people, and that then means that they're then sort of potentially condemned to a life of trying to be something they're not, and that is just so sad. I find that sort of very upsetting just to think about, really. I think people have got to learn to accept to be themselves. And what is powerful about this Instagram movement is that it's encouraging that. So, social media can have that very positive influence on people, hopefully, while at the same time having this very destructive influence on people. Girls wanting, the Kardashian sort of backside, and all the rest of it, which is just so powerful but very destructive at the same time. It's very sad to see that.
I think it is, and I've actually seen something more recently on Instagram where a lot of Instagrammers are posting more like reality photos,
Yeah.
opposed to the Instagram photo as such. And I think that's probably helping as well with, like you saying, that positive movement.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Yes, I think the only thing with that is that you need to just make sure that people aren't then wallowing in their own sort of unhappiness and using social media as sort of an outlet for that, because I think you do see that extreme as well, which again is sort of a fairly unhappy event when that happens. I think it's just a question of trying not to paint life as I'm constantly living on a lovely beach somewhere in the tropics,
Yeah.
but because very few people have a genuine life like that. It's sort of trying to show that, from my point of view, what I'm trying to show is that style isn't just how you look. It isn't what you wear. It's your whole sort of attitude towards life in general, and the other things you do. Your attitude towards health and exercise and all that sort of thing. I think that's sort of much more holistic, more interesting. But I think what's interesting is I don't think it sort of grabs the numbers of followers in the way that just appearing in a different suit every day seems to do on Instagram.
Yeah, but it's definitely more realistic.
I think that's right. Yeah, and I think I think what you're saying is that there may well be a move towards that sort of more realistic type of um, accounts on Instagram. I hope so. Anyway,
I
I think
hope.
it's healthy. Yeah.
Going back to your blog and your blogging, how do you find time to sit down and to write and to keep up with your Instagram, to keep up with your social media? How do you find time working a job as well?
Well, I'm virtually retired, so that's how I find the time to do it. At the moment, I don't have a job as such because I'm retired from it. So I'm very lucky in that respect, and I do it because I enjoy doing it. So it's a bit like having any sort of hobby. I could be down the garden shed doing woodwork or something, and I'd see it in exactly the same way as I see running the blog and doing Instagram. Really, I enjoy it so much. In actual fact, I have to sometimes step back from it and try to give myself time to do other things, because I think the problem with things like social media is it can suck you in, and writing can suck you in because you're continually sort of tinkering with it and changing sentences and words and things. So you have to develop an attitude that perfection doesn't exist, that enough is enough, and that will just have to do. So I think that's something I've been trying to train myself to do.
How are you getting on with that, training yourself about perfection? And
Not terribly well, probably, but reasonably well. Reasonably well. Yeah, I do find time to do other things, which is good.
it is good. And did you think that blogging would be such a big thing, to like take up so much time when you first started?
No, and I think that's partly because when I first started, I think Instagram had only been around for a year or something, or Twitter had, but anyway, it was in the very early days of both. 9 years ago, both Instagram and Twitter were there, but in a very sort of undeveloped state. And it's only in the last, if you think about it, it's only really been in the last few years that those particular media have sort of begun to be so large that they have the potential for taking over your life. And Instagram in particular has sort of got better and better in the way that it's become more interactive. It's no longer just a question of you're putting up lots of nice pictures. It's actually a question of using it to interact with your audience. And that is something I really enjoy. And that's a really positive side of it, which I think, makes it worthwhile doing, actually. I sort of have Insta friends all around the world now, which is just fantastic.
It is.
And they're genuine friends as well. And it's not a sort of, it's not the usual sort of rather shallow social media thing. It's these are people I know on first name terms, and we sort of swap ideas, through messaging and email, and that is a side of it which is very enjoyable, really.
I think it is as well. I know, like with my social media, and even doing this, the amount of people who like I've got to know, and like it's just, I think it's amazing. So I think it definitely does have its perks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I agree. Yes.
Do you think that you will write that book anytime?
I've been thinking about that quite a lot recently, and yes, I think, well, in a way, I slightly regret I missed the opportunity a few years ago, because although it wasn't the book I wanted to write, it at least would have got me started. And there's no doubt, up here and on the blog, over 9 years of blogging, I've got the material just I could put together and do a book fairly easily. Whether there's the market for it, I don't know, but I would love to do it. I think that it's clear from my audience on Instagram that men like to get ideas from elsewhere, that they're not worried about sort of being influenced or being inspired by other people, because I think nothing is totally original. We're all a synthesis of what we see around us, and whether those ideas come from Instagram or from a book doesn't really matter, really, although Instagram can be more sort of immediate, and you can sort of immediately goes out of date potentially. But something like style is something that's timeless. So if you can capture the basic sort of elements of it, that doesn't necessarily matter whether it's in a book or something as fluid as Instagram. So I don't know, I'd like to think I would, but as I said right at the beginning, really, in some ways my desire to write has been fulfilled by the blog and by Instagram. So I don't quite feel the same sort of fire to do that I did in the early days.
Okay. Well, if you do write your book, you'll have to let me know, and I'll have to give it.
Cool.
I know I probably won't follow some of the fashion tips, but
Well, I hope you buy a copy.
finally, I have 10 very quick questions.
Oh, I'm dreading these. Go on then. Yes.
Okay, are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, favourite meal?
Oh, spaghetti bolognese.
Oh, good choice. Cadbury's or Galaxy?
Can I say neither?
Really?
No, it would be green and blacks.
Fair.
The posh version,
Yeah, no, to be fair, I'm probably with you on that one.
Good.
Bow ties, yes or no?
No.
Really?
Well, again, does it have to be yes or no? Because, if you're going out for a black tie dinner, then yes, certainly. But I'm not the sort of type to wear a paisley bow tie, with my tweed jacket.
Okay.
Is that all right? Is that acceptable as an answer?
Acceptable. One colour that goes best with grey hair?
One colour. Well, I have to say I've been recently looking at grey and wearing quite a lot of grey, and so I think grey works. But actually, any bright colour can go with grey hair. So bright reds, bright blues, you know. Yeah. So I'm not really answering your questions, am I? I'm giving you all sorts of
Around
different. Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes. So tough. That's the best you're going to get, I'm afraid.
Favorite shoe style, if you had to pick one?
Oh, suede brogues.
Nice.
Yeah,
Opinion.
nice English-made suede brogues.
Nice. Your opinion on trainers with suits?
Oh, definitely no. Definitely no. There were a couple of menswear magazines that were trying to get people excited about trainers with suits 2 or 3 years ago, and it never quite sort of took off. But you know, that's partly a function of my age, really. You know, I feel that trainers are just something you wear either with jeans or in the gym, and that's sort of it.
Yeah, no,
So,
completely
all
get
right. Okay, yeah, good.
One thing that you would tell your younger self?
Oh gosh. One thing that I'd tell my younger self. I think probably that age isn't as bad as you think.
Hmm. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Does aging scare you in any way?
No. I suppose like anybody of any age, I sort of slightly. I don't want to die, but I'm aging as such doesn't scare me. No.
Pears,
That's a bit of a grim one, isn't it?
pears or grapes?
uh, grapes, I think, provided they're the sort without the pips.
Is that because they make wine?
Well, they get stuck in your teeth,
And one item of clothing that always has to look nice.
Almost anything really. I think trousers. They're probably the hardest to get right because people too often wear them too long, too baggy, sagging at the waist, sagging at the bottom. The trousers.
Yeah. Well, you'll be glad to know that's the end of the 10 quick questions.
Okay.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Well, tell me in a bit more what it is you're doing, because I'm really fascinated by what it is that you're putting together here.
Okay. Now, I hope you all really enjoyed that interview with David. It just goes to show that progress is about stepping stones. It's not necessarily about getting anywhere quickly. For example, as we heard David speak about, the whole reason why he started his blog was because he wanted to write a book. He's still not wrote his book, but he has a successful blog, and that blog is helping him get to where he wants to be with his book. Now, David started his blog because he wasn't sure what style he wanted to write about. So the first stepping stone to his end goal was starting his blog, and he has become really successful in doing so. So again, it's all about stepping stones to get where you want to be, and it's not necessarily about winning the race quickly, but it's about the steps that you take to get there. Now, you can follow David at the links here. If you have someone that inspires you, comment below. I'm always so interested to find out who others find inspirational. Likewise, if you have an inspirational story to tell or think that your story could help others, comment below, drop me a message on social media, or even drop me an email. On Wednesday at 5 o'clock, I'll be speaking with singer and songwriter Billy Lockett about his journey to getting in the charts. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, comment below, let me know what you think, and don't forget to hit subscribe. See you all on Wednesday. See you later.